Hey there, Russell here from Adelaide West Physio. I just wanted to share a little story with you just to show how embedded this idea of pain and damage being the same thing is in our language and in just the way we're brought up, I think. So I spend a lot of time talking with people about, particularly if they have persistent pain, but it can be people with acute pain too, talking about the idea that the degree of damage, what's happening in the tissues, and pain are not the same thing. And intuitively that sounds wrong. Intuitively you would think that if something hurts this much, it means it's damaged this much. But that's not how it works at all, and pain isn't a measure of damage. It's not a damage-ometer, but instead pain is the final part of an assessment process that your body does of a situation, taking into account lots and lots of different factors, including what's happening in the tissues, but certainly not just that. There's loads and loads of other things that come into that assessment and that weighing up of the situation, and then and only then will your body produce the experience of pain or not. And there's lots of examples of people that are in emergency type situations that don't experience pain even though they have wild tissue damage. There's lots of examples of that, shark bites and gunshot wounds, and yeah, I think most people have got their own amazing pain story where they don't necessarily see a direct correlation between the amount of pain they're having and what they've done to themselves, and they're surprised when they look down and see blood, those kind of situations where you think, how did that happen? And then you realise you've got a big gaping wound on your foot or a nail stuck in it or whatever. So where I was going with that, I was talking with someone about their knee pain and how they were doing an activity and they were a bit anxious about doing this particular activity, and we were just breaking it down. And I said, so were you worried that you were going to hurt yourself? And I stopped myself and I thought, what I actually meant to say was, were you worried that you were going to damage your joint? But the language is different to that. It's, are you worried you're going to hurt yourself? And yet, they're two quite different things. And what she was thinking, what I was thinking is, were you worried that you were going to damage your joint or damage your tissue or damage your body? But instead, sometimes you just automatically slip into that language of, you're worried you're going to hurt yourself, which is a completely different thing. It's quite not polar opposite, but it's certainly not the same thing. They're not equivalents. And I've been talking about pain and trying to learn about pain science and trying to be a decent teacher of it for many years now. And even then, I found myself slipping into just a phrase, just a throwaway phrase, but it does tend to reinforce the idea of how we tend to instinctively and intuitively look at pain as a measure of our tissue damage when that's not what it represents at all. And this is a really key concept. If you're someone that does have persistent pain, it's really important that you get your head around that concept. Sometimes it takes a bit of time to get your head around that concept. Sometimes you need a bunch of examples, and best examples are the ones that you can find in yourself, where you've done something and the pain has been quite wildly different to what you would expect. Either there's a whole lot more pain until you realise that you haven't actually injured yourself, and I can think of a few examples of that for myself, and oh, we've lost light, we've lost power. Oh, there we go. We'll keep going. Laura Mosley's snake bite example is a great example. That's my computer cacking itself, I think. where he had, you should watch it. I'll put a link below to that. It's a great story, and it just helps to illustrate this example well. And the other end of the spectrum is where something catastrophic happens to someone. There's a story of someone that got stabbed at a train station a few years ago in WA, and she reports how she could feel the warm seeping down her leg from her stab wound in her thigh, but she didn't realise there wasn't that much pain involved with it. And of course that's not going to be the same for everyone, but it was interesting in her case. She had quite a significant injury, tissue injury. There would have been lots of sensors in her tissues going crazy, and yet despite that she didn't have a sensation of pain. Her first alert was, from what I can remember, was the feeling of the warm liquid running down her leg. Anyway, pain and tissue, they're not the same thing, and we need to be careful about how we talk about them, so we don't conflate the two. Cheers.